I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, does the sixth wave of COVID-19 have you concerned?
We have to do everything we can to keep ourselves safe.
Personally, I'm not.
People are probably walking around with COVID and they know they have it.
COVID is just part of our existence now.
But first, Canada's northern premiers recently met with the Prime Minister and the Minister of National Defence to discuss their concerns about a stronger military presence in the north as the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues to unfold. Russia's recent invasion of Ukraine has perhaps served as a wake-up call for Canada, with calls for better infrastructure in the north, not only militarily, but with better roads, hospitals, and telecommunications equipment. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians if they have any concerns about our independence up north. Our question:
how concerned are you about Arctic sovereignty?
I am concerned because if you look at what they just did with, or what they're doing right now with Ukraine, is pretty much doing anything they want without asking anyone if it's okay or not. So I'm expecting that at any moment they can just try to decide that some part of what's ours right now can just go to them without any questions and do whatever they want. Because right now I feel that nobody's doing anything to help them. I know there's reasons for that, because worried about pretty much starting a third world war. But no, I am concerned, and I hope that if Canada and the allies will do something to protect that for sure.
I would say I think it's an important thing to have. It's important that we understand our borders and keep them in place. So we obviously don't want to have the same thing happen to us that happened in Ukraine. So
I worry about Arctic sovereignty, and mainly from an environmental point of view. I want it to stay clean. I want to be in control of what oil and gas exploration happens up there, and I want it to always be in part of Canada.
I have a mild concern about that. I think for all the reasons that we all know and love. Russia has spent a lot of effort and time and money in establishing the Arctic across their borders, and have gone beyond that in claiming Arctic waters beyond that which international treaties recognize. And given Russia's recent behavior, my concern has increased. So I support, which is easy to say in isolation, I support Canadian government further investment in establishing or in maintaining our sovereignty there.
Russia's shown what they're willing to do, and no one's willing to stop them. It's there, so I suppose it is concerning.
I haven't given him that much thought, but it's probably a concern now that Russia is being as aggressive as it is.
You can't candy coat it. There's hostile agencies that are out there, the Soviets, and a little bit of aggression coming from the Chinese, and I don't want to paint any pictures there, but that's a concern. We need a presence there.
I'm not overly concerned about that. I know Russia has a lot going on right now, so I feel like that's not their main priority, and I feel like they have a couple more better things to do than go for our Arctic right now anyways.
Now that ice and whatnot, we are able to travel there a little bit more frequently. Now where Russia does have experience with colder climates, as well as like Canada, so you encounter some of the military that doesn't have that that climatization to the colder weather. So of course I think it should be cause for concern for anybody that's going to be posting up shop there in terms of military presence.
Well, economically and militarily, you always need to be concerned about what other nations are competing to do. It's a double-edged sword, because I think on one hand Arctic sovereignty is important, but also any rapid steps to militarize the Arctic and obtain that land and utilize it in any way that's not for a collective good globally is a little bit counterproductive, I would say.
Oh, of course. I mean, right now they're in Ukraine, but probably Poland next, probably the north as well. So I think the whole world should be paying better attention on what's going on, because it's only the beginning for Putin. That's for sure. I mean, that's a clear sign. Just look at past history. I mean, what Hitler did. He said the same thing. Oh no, it's only here, but a couple of months later, he was in the next country, and it's going to happen the same thing. History repeating itself.
I'm very worried
Why?
Because I don't want them to take over what we have.
And you were from the north, correct?
I'm from Nunavut, Hall Beach, Nunavut.
We really don't have much of a presence there, either in terms of population or a military presence, not that we could ever defend it. And Mike Pompeo actually questioned our sovereignty. Now, was he speaking just for Mike Pompeo, or was he speaking for others in the power structure in the United States? And then, of course, there's Russia, but I think Russia's kind of busy right now.
Well, I worked in the Arctic for a few years. I'm not terribly concerned, and frankly, Canada won't do much about it anyway. We have a crummy defense policy, we have no budget, and frankly, the Arctic has never really been a concern to Southern Canadians. We pretend, we like to dream about it, but it's not part of Southern Canada's mentality.
You know, this is a real concern. There's thousands of people, innocent people are dying in Ukraine, and we all have to stand by Ukraine, which we all already do, US and Canada, and I think we will continue to oppose this aggression together. So we have to stand together, otherwise they cannot get stopped.
Canada and NATO's response in helping Ukraine has been met with some praise and criticism in that Canada could be doing more. Recently, this country sent 150 troops to Poland to help with the resettlement of Ukrainian refugees. Recently, Canada also committed in helping Ukraine with heavy artillery. While Canada and other NATO countries continue to talk tough about Russia, many feel we're still not providing the adequate protection needed to protect the Ukrainian people from aggressive Russian attacks. So, we took to the streets to see what you think about this. Our question:
how do you feel about Canada's response in Ukraine?
I'm happy with our response. I think it's a very fine line. You have to be careful how you respond to that. Do I feel that we need to do more? We probably do. What that is, I'm not sure, but definitely I'm happy with our response. I think the world as a whole needs to come together and get a lot more involved. Do we need to put troops on the ground? I don't know if that's the answer. I worry that it may come to that.
I'm not particularly up to date on the exact sanctions and the exact military support that we're providing. I think it's what's to be expected. I mean, Ukraine isn't a NATO nation, so I think we are, as much as there is backlash, I think that we are responding appropriately. I mean, it's terrible to see residential buildings and commercial buildings being caught in the crossfire and innocent people dying, but you really have to be careful when you're dealing with kind of an authoritarian state, as in Russia, because you never know what the response might be. But of course, it is sad. I think the sanctions are appropriate, though, as much as gas prices suck and everything the prices going up suck. I mean, I think you kind of need to do your part because people are suffering way harder on the other side of the world right now.
Not enough.
Why?
Well, we need Winston Churchill. He didn't let Hitler get away with that. Look at, we're letting Putin just do whatever. Like, what if it was our children that were being bombed? Like, we should put ourselves in their shoes, literally. No, the whole world, NATO should be doing way more. Sanctions are not, I mean, obviously Putin doesn't give a hoot about sanctions. He just keeps bombing them every day. So we need to do more.
I feel like they could have handled it better and tried to make some more conversations with Russia before they got to what they're doing now. I feel like there could have been a couple extra steps made before going after them.
It's typical. There's a lot of talk. I don't honestly see a lot of things happening, a lot of arm waving, a lot of Canadians are thinking about you, Canadians this, Canadians that. A lot of blather. We don't have anything in our inventory to give them anyway if you're thinking about hardware. And from a policy point of view, where are all the Ukrainian refugees that need housing? They're in Europe, they're not in Canada. By the time we figure out our bureaucracy and our political stance, the whole thing will be over.
I think it's good, but you know, Ukrainian people currently need more help, both financial, humanitarian, as well as military.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, they're giving money, they're giving aid, they're helping out where they can. it's a touchy subject. You know, nobody wants to go into a third world war, but all signs are it'll probably head that way if it continues. I mean, Ukraine, like I said, is one country that they have their eye on, but you know, give it another 6 months, and you'll see it'll continue on to neighboring countries, and before you know it, you know, we're going to probably be headed into another world war. That's my thoughts on it.
I'm generally against Canada being allied with the United States, because I think that's nothing but trouble for us. Canada, I think, should be a non-aligned or neutral country. Obviously, I condemn what Putin is doing in Ukraine, but at the same time, actions have consequences, and we have to understand the geopolitical situation better. And as people like to say, we're sleepwalking into something much bigger here. There's a real danger. You know, Canada is pushing Russia, and like, why are we making an enemy of Russia? Why are we antagonizing Russia? Russia has never done anything to Canada. Never.
You know, I have mixed feelings about it. I think it's good that we definitely support what Ukraine's doing. I'm Ukrainian myself, so that's obviously important for me, that I don't want to see them completely taken over by Russia. But I think it's a sticky situation, and there's a lot going on that we maybe don't know fully. So yeah, I think overall it's been a positive response to what's going on.
It would be easy to say we're not doing enough, but I think that if we probably knew everything that's going on in the background, we would be probably in a better position to answer this. Right now, personally, I'd say no, we're not doing enough. But again, if we knew everything, probably then we would go like, no, we should not, because that guy can press the button anytime, and that can cause probably even more harm that it's doing right now.
I am pleased with our response in the Ukraine. We all know that Canada has limited influence, but nonetheless we have done our, I won't say our best, but we've done a lot to be influential in the right direction. There, you know, the usual issues that come up: percent of GDP or percent of defense versus GDP. I support the going to 2%, which would include the Arctic, and I would support any further measures in unison with America and the EU and NATO.
I don't like to see war, and I don't like to see what's going on in Ukraine. It's just devastating. It'd be nice if we had a stronger Canadian Armed Forces, and I have a nephew that's in the Armed Forces, so I really don't want to see him to go to war. But sometimes the democracy has to stand up for a certain sense of law in the world. And if we just stand by and watch what's happening, it just becomes darker and darker.
How many Canadian Prime Ministers have never held a cabinet position? 1, 2, or 3?
I say 3.
2.
I think 3.
Ooh, that's very interesting. Being a political science and law student, I should know this, but I'm actually going to go with 2.
2?
I'd say 1.
2? Door number 2.
It is door number 2.
Yay!
Very good.
Of the 23 prime ministers who have served since Confederation, most have served in a ministerial portfolio either before or during their tenure as PM, except for 2. The first was Brian Mulroney. He was Canada's 18th Prime Minister between 1984 and 1993. The second, Stephen Harper, who was Canada's 22nd Prime Minister between 2006 and 2015. Neither Mulroney or Harper ever held a cabinet portfolio prior to or throughout their time as Prime Minister.
We've been seeing the effects at your local gas station at what Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson calls an energy security crisis as more countries try to move away from Russian oil. Canada has indicated that we will increase oil and gas exports by 300,000 barrels per day this year. But with gas prices now higher than they've ever been, there's been renewed interest on both sides of our border to be a little more proactive with our oil and gas production. So we took to the streets with this question.
Has the Ukraine conflict changed your view of the importance of Canada's oil and gas industry?
Yes, I'm really concerned because as far as I'm concerned, Russia has the biggest supply of gas, natural gas, to Europe as well as US. And I was really upset by the current US administration closing the pipeline from Canada to US. So currently, yeah, I understand the trend of saving the nature, looking for some other sources of energy
For the environment.
for the environment.
Yeah.
I'm really, I understand that, but currently there's no substitute for natural gas and oil. So we have to use these resources as much as we can. Of course, it doesn't mean that we have to stop exploring the other sources of energy, but currently we don't have any substitute.
I think it's time that we start producing for ourselves and cutting our dependence on foreign oil and foreign natural resources. We've got tons of it here. Let's use our country's resources and get those gas prices down.
Domestically, we still don't have a pipeline to the east. We still import some oil. Well, obviously we export more, and it all goes to the U.S. Canada always tends to take the lazy, easy way out. We're a country that's basically gotten very rich off resources. Now we see another opportunity to get richer without actually doing very much about it in terms of oil and gas. Oil and gas are not the fuels of the future, to my way of thinking. But Canada will always be at the bottom of the pile, pretending we're doing things, and essentially it doesn't matter which party's in power. This is not a liberal thing or a conservative thing.
I work in oil, so I understand there's a need for domestic supply. Russia's being curtailed. They've shut down the main pipeline out of Russia. If we had the Keystone XL, of course, we'd be able to meet market demand. It would be less price at the pump. We could ramp up our domestic production here. Therefore, consumers wouldn't be paying so much at the pump. Again, I think it's appropriate to shut off the Russian supply of oil. Given that we have all the reserves here, why not explore them and, refine here, have the capacity in our own country and in the U.S.?
I would say it's solidified what I already believe in that Canada really needs to be self-sustaining in our own resources, and if we have oil, why are we using other people's oil, right? I think we should use what we have.
My view of the importance of the oil and gas industry here in Canada hasn't changed. It's been the same since I was a kid. It's extremely important to us, not just in terms of our own economy, but our ability to deflect things like that are happening with Putin demanding rubles for his oil and gas and things like that. This is a problem, it's time to put on the big boy pants and deal with this. That we have to make some tough choices, and let's do it now. So that we don't have to deal with it in 20 years when they're mining the North Pole on us. That's the world we live in.
The conflict hasn't changed my view, and I think if anything, it's reaffirmed a view I hold, and I feel like a lot of people hold in this town, which is our strong ESG profile of things that we do, that there's a place in the global market for it.
I think from my point of view, I think the United States are realizing how much they depend on the Russian oil and gas, and they really have to turn their eyes northward towards Canada for that resource.
I think we need to be available to other countries that need oil, and certainly shipping oil across to Europe so they're not dependent on Russia is really a good direction for us to go.
No, it hasn't. I've always viewed the oil and gas industry in Canada as important. It hasn't changed my view of that. I do find it intriguing. I don't understand why America, when they're looking for further supplies, why they haven't cast their eye towards us as a major oil and gas producer and source of reserves. And I appreciate the oil sands and its greater impact on the environment. But nonetheless, it hasn't changed because I saw a central role for oil and gas, Canadian oil and gas, in transition to green energy.
Yeah, it's definitely made me think about, who we're partnered with and the rates that we work out and the sanctions and whatnot. And it also opened my eyes really to how much we depend on other nations, right, for our own everyday life. I mean, you live in a city, in a country, and you think everything is sustainable. If everyone else went dark out there, you think everything's going to maintain just fine at home, and it's really not.
It has right now, in view of the war in Ukraine, the dependency on Russia's oil and gas needs to be stopped, needs to be reduced. So I guess Canada needs to step up and provide that for now. Does that a long-term solution? No. We have to move away from using oil and gas, but for now, we need to step up Canada's production of oil and gas and use. Absolutely.
Yeah, we should be more self-dependent on our own oil and gases because we have an abundance here in Canada itself. So if we start using our own resources instead of importing them in, we'd probably save a lot and make more jobs.
Canada's health officials have confirmed this country is now under a sixth wave of COVID-19. This BA2 subvariant has been spreading somewhat quickly in different regions of Canada, even though COVID restrictions have been lifted, which includes mask mandates. And some fear this could help the spread even more. But after 2 years of a pandemic, are you still concerned about the risks, or has your caution over COVID-19 waned? Our question.
Does a sixth wave of COVID-19 have you concerned?
Well, COVID is just part of our existence now. And honestly, hopefully we've all had our vaccinations and maybe some of us have even been exposed to COVID and we don't even know. And it's just going to be part of and I guess the only thing that matters to me is how heavy the hospitals are affected, because obviously we want regular healthcare to go back to normal.
Honestly, not at all. I've had COVID. So for me, I feel like the best defense is just to get it. It's probably not the most appropriate thing to say, but at the end of the day, I'm just the type of person that can only be restricted to my rights for so long. I'm not a freedom fighter. I'm not necessarily a healthcare professional, but I've had COVID. I feel like that's the best defense.
No, I'm not. No, I'm a senior. And no, I've had all my vaccinations. And after 2 years, I know how to take care of myself. And, I'll wear my mask when I'm out. And if I'm comfortable not, I take it off. And I think that we've all been told enough about how to take care of ourselves.
I was never worried about COVID to begin with. I know a lot of people were. I was more worried about, I suppose, the panic and pandemonium that would ensue. And obviously, we've seen that tenfold, I believe, in terms of the way our world's turned upside down with politicians and drama and all kinds of stuff. So
I am. Maybe in the past it wouldn't have been, but now with all the restrictions lifted, and I don't think anybody's in any mood to go back to restrictions, I guess. So what are we going to do?
Worried? I don't know. With the vaccines and everything, not that much anymore. Not as much as it was in the first waves.
No, because I think COVID is going to be with us forever. Just call it a sixth, call it a seventh, I don't care, call it whatever. It's going to go on and on and on and on. I'm not getting another booster. I'm done. That's it. It's the pharmaceutical companies that are making trillions of dollars. I did what I had to do. I got the 2 shots. I got the booster. Now there's a 4th booster coming, or when the 4th one coming out, I'm not getting it.
Personally, I'm not. I feel like the ripple effect will just keep going and going. But you look at it, we've pretty much ridden this thing out. I'm vaccinated. I hope everyone else is vaccinated, or at least if we keep going and practicing safe social distancing, I think we can pretty much ride this thing out.
I'm hopeful that we are over the big hump of it and that life will return to a new normal. Not my favorite saying, but we have to look at that and realize that that's just how it is now with COVID.
But we were already in a medical crisis prior due to the opioid and all of the drugs that were happening. And now after COVID, the mental health resources were lacking prior, and now we're going to have an influx in what I think will be in mental health We're going to see a lot more with addictions, mental health after the downfall of the COVID.
Canadians are learning to live with it. I think we're getting on with life as best we can. So the sixth wave doesn't concern me. The numbers are up, the wastewater numbers are up, but the hospitalizations are holding steady. And frankly, most governments are crossing their fingers and pretending everything's getting back to normal, whether it is or not. I don't have the technical expertise to know.
Yeah, it does in a sense, only because, let's say back in December, I only knew a couple people that had it. And now it's almost an anomaly to not have it, or not have had it at least, right? Like I haven't had it yet, but I'm saying yet as a like I know it's a foregone conclusion at this point. I know it's going to happen, but I'm just waiting for it. But as far as the actual symptoms from people I know that have got it, my whole family got it, and it's just a bad cold for them. So I mean that's promising, but they're all triple vax, so you know, and soon to be fourth for over 65. So
it does. You know, there's it's been going on for 2 years plus now. It's nonstop. People are sick and tired of it. People are probably walking around with COVID and they know they have it, but they're doing it anyways because you know they're tired of being locked up. So you know, and there's so many cases right now. But we're not hearing about it on TV anymore because, you know, everything that happened the last couple of months with the truckers and everything. I guess politicians are afraid to bring it up like they used to. So,
I'm one of those that's been wearing a mask since the early days. I've been wearing an N95 mask since the early days, and my wife is the same. She works at home. I'm lucky enough to work at home too. I'm mostly retired now, but I work at home. I've always worked at home. So for us, staying at home has been no issue. But and in terms of COVID. You're fine, but we had it like 2 weeks ago. My wife went out for a drink with her friends down here in the market. 2 days later, she started coughing. She had mild cold-like symptoms. 3 days later, I started coughing. I had mild cold-like symptoms, and within 72 hours, we were fine. But there's always the issue with COVID of long COVID. You know, everybody says it's mild, and it is most of the time. But some people are going to have permanent lung damage, even permanent heart damage, even permanent brain damage from long COVID. So it's not time to put these away. It's not time to stop sanitizing.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.